Hey, this is Notser, and this video is concerning the Daring and the Jutland. And it's the lack of consistent success that players are experiencing after purchase, grind, what have you. There's a level of disappointment in the community over these two ships. And I wanted to share my build, my thought process, and just what's going on from my end and the community's response to the ship. The build is on the screen. It is not the same recommended build that I was talking about probably 2-3 weeks ago, and it's because, as I feared, the community has caught on already on how to deal with the Daring and the Jutland. And this is just a video in response to that, giving you hope and a suggestion for a build that works. Now, I'm using premium. I've played a lot of this. I'm trying to really figure it out for all of you. I know it's frustrating when you go to a line and it doesn't work out as well as the CC's painted, right? Oh, this is a lot harder to use, or it's less effective than the CC's made it out to be. What's the deal? Am I doing something wrong? No, you're not. The community has already caught on what to do. And this can happen, but you can't just fire AP. I have tried. I had family emergency when 710 came out. I wasn't able to play for 2 or 3 days. And when I started playing in my Daring, in my Jutland, and trying to only fire AP against all my targets, everyone had already learned how to deal with you. They either were bow on, or they were stern in retreat. Not a reverse, in retreat. I have seen a consistent strategy by enemy DDs who perform this exact maneuver. In another game, I was dealing with the Shimakaze, and I spotted the Shimakaze, he spotted me. The Shimakaze, rather than popping smoke, as you would expect, coming to a stop and angling away, he just committed to bow tanking my AP shells. And unfortunately for him, I had already committed to switching to IFHE and involving that in my build. So he died very quickly. Very, very quickly. As quickly as this Yue Yang is dying to IFHE in that angling. You could not do that with AP. And I had a similar situation in the early days of the patch where I would fire AP at that target and I would do maybe 1,000 damage because he would refuse to give me any angling to exploit. And this is the real truth. This is the honest truth, everyone. You have to have IFHE. You cannot ignore IFHE. The community has already figured out what to do. They're not going to give you the angle for your AP to be exploited, especially in a 1 versus 1. Now, if you're just a supporting cast member where someone else is doing all the dirty work, you're just firing from range, yeah, sure, maybe you can get by without taking IFHE. But if you ever intend to 1v1 anyone ever, you need IFHE. This is the case on North America. I'm sure it's even worse on Europe because you guys have a higher population of players. They've already figured all that out. I'm sure that Russia, I'm sure that Southeast Asia, I'm sure that every single server has figured out what to do. And you have to adapt. You can't refuse to adapt. Oh, well, I saw videos of this person using this build, and it was as recent as a week ago. They're outdated. Honestly, all of the test footage is outdated by the time it's actually released because most people don't know what they're seeing. They don't know what they should be doing. They don't know how they should counter this situation. So it's the easiest, most susceptible, most vulnerable anyone will be ever in the game. And it's just not a good barometer for that measurement. And as you can see, this flank is gone. We're going to retreat bad, real bad. I've also had difficulty incorporating my torpedo systems into every action. I've tried single, I've tried narrow, I've tried a mixture, I've tried everything. I feel like the torpedoes have the limited firing arc and the long cooldown that just discourages me from incorporating it in any significant, meaningful play. This is the area where I would definitely love some improvement. And if you have a suggestion, I'm all ears. I love that the guns are incredibly terrifying to the enemy, but I would love for my torpedo strikes to be more successful. You know, in this instance, this flank is completely gone. 100% gone. I'm just merely trying to retreat. I'm not going to openly fire, and you might have noticed I employed a strategy that I have not done that often, and yet I will be doing more and more and more. I was disengaging from the enemy. I was spotted out of frustration and aggression. I want to get some damage on the enemy DD. I think it was a Kagero that was approaching. Because I saw him, I was like figuring, why not take the shot? Immediately, he drops off detection because of the islands, and I am in the open for 10, 20 seconds. Instead of just allowing the enemy to engage me for those 10 or 20 seconds, I chose to use one smoke charge to do a hard disengage before I ever found out that it's dealing with enemy fire. I didn't allow that 20 seconds to go by, and it felt really good. And sure enough, my radar location pointed towards something closer than the enemies, and I wanted to sail as quickly as I could into the enemy. Since I'm sailing towards them, obviously smoke is not going to block or conceal. I'm just trying to angle and maneuver while still spotted. But I'm still going to chase down the Yueyang. I'm going to chase him down, and I'm going to maintain a sort of bow-on appearance while chasing him down. It's really easy to do this in the Daring and the Jutland because they have the 360 gun turrets. And I found that the most effective way of doing this is you sail towards the enemy, use your full speed, you don't drop any acceleration in turns because you get to benefit from the Royal Navy acceleration baked in just as cruisers did before. And as you're using this speed and acceleration in turns, you're gaining ever so slightly on this target, and I'm hoping that once I leave the smoke, I will be able to actually engage him. I was considering for half a second, should I turn to the western side of the map? And then I was like, I think I can afford to be aggressive here because this giant island should conceal the enemy. It is a bold strategy, Cotton, but it's one I'm employing. And yes, the Yueyang actually is here, so I'm just going to use the front guns, and I will angle out just enough every so often. If the island doesn't get in the way, I would angle out ever so often to use the back gun, but I don't need to. And just minimize the target that's available to the enemy. Now, I'm headed through this area with this lion, sending my torpedoes. Probably should have done a narrow spread in this instance, and I probably should have used my smoke to deny lion line of sight. I used it a little slow, and as you might predict, it didn't really work out where I, wiped him out completely. He was aware of the maneuver. He's going to angle back. A couple torpedoes will make contact, but he's going to be able to stop the flood, stop the fire, and I'm going to be disappointed that the rest of my torpedoes are just passing harmlessly away. And yeah, I'm firing high explosive. I'm firing it at the superstructure. I'm looking for another fire to be set back up on him. And we do get extra fires, and I do feel pretty good about that, while the enemy apparently was moving down this flank. Now, I'm not going to do everything perfectly. I definitely make mistakes in this game, but everything that I'm doing for a reason. It's a power play that's available to this ship's design. I felt like IFHE was mandatory, is mandatory. The penetration just isn't there. And if you allow your enemy a window where they can exploit the fact that you can't do anything with 50% of your shell type, it ends up being a pretty bad experience. It was pretty bad, very bad, and I did not enjoy it at all. Not having IFHE on the ship was very reminiscent, and of course, Kagedo's here. Hydroacoustic is up. Notice the bow on. Notice the 360 gun turrets. I can do this wiggle all day, and I can have access to all 3 gun turrets. It's so easy with the hydro and the maneuverability to avoid torpedoes, as if there's no threat of it whatsoever. And of course, there's a GK on approach. Probably the worst ship I could possibly see in this instance, and the reason is because he's got hydroacoustic. And boy, is he going to have hydroacoustic. And I sent my torpedoes just a little too early. Just a wee bit too early. And this is the wrong call. This is the wrong call from me. What I should be trying to do is I should be trying to reverse back behind the island. I should also have saved one set of torpedoes for point blank. I should have sent one set, maybe single, maybe narrow, at the GK, and he's trying to ram me. I'm trying not to ram. And I probably should have rammed him, because the Des Moines is ready to go, and the Des Moines is absolutely going to kill me. I'm going to try and do a little bit of damage, but it doesn't matter. We're dead. We're absolutely dead. And huge misplay. I bit off more than I honestly could chew with the enemies that were there, with their hydro on the radar. But I could see the future, what I should do in that instance, and I see how it would work out in my favor. Really, the only part of the Daring and the Jutland that I need to improve with is the torpedoes. The Lightning has an easier arc to make use of. The Lightning has 120mm guns, which are awesome. I don't need IFHE to make those function. The Lightning feels perfect. And in order to get a similar feel, you've got to invest in IFHE. You've got to really consider your torpedo usage. But once you've done that, the Daring and the Jutland, there's no reason they can't be super successful at any number of things in the game. And that's just what I wanted to try and share. I know that some of you were incredibly disappointed with your Daring or your Jutland, and I'm here to reassure you. It is the build, and it does require that you invest just for penetration, which puts us all the way back to where the Akizuki was. And I don't know that I want the Akizuki buff treatment to make IFHE not mandatory, but IFHE right now feels mandatory, based on the way people play and the meta that exists. And it shouldn't feel mandatory. It should feel like a decision that's above anything else. It encourages the player to customize their experience of the game. And I don't think that exists for the Daring and the Jutland. I don't want a 4th pin, maybe a 5th pin, just something to where I can at least do some damage to DDs without IFHE. Because it just requires a super expensive commander. You'll note that my build, it costs 18 points to be just there with everything taken. The concealment was nerfed. 6.0 is the absolute maximum, so you do need concealment. It's not the old version, when it's 5.5. And you could consider, do I want to take concealment first? I could get it down to 6.3 without the concealment skill. But no, you need IFHE, you need concealment, you need radiolocation to really have this ship fully excel in all aspects that you always covet in any DD at high tier. You need those skills. You just need IFHE. If you don't have IFHE, you might as well never fire a high explosive. It's going to shatter on everything, and all you're looking for is the fire chance. And yeah, sure, the fire chance. It feels really bad to fire a shell that does 0 damage, and all you're looking for is a RNG fire effect on the enemy. That doesn't feel very rewarding. And it shouldn't feel very rewarding. That's why people had complaints, I think. The majority of the comments were, my Daring, it just isn't working out the way that it was portrayed. The videos made it seem like it was a monster, and the version that I got was an underpowered, joke of a ship. And yeah, the concealment's not as good. The hydro's great, the smoke is fantastic, it has a heal. Some people might argue you could invest in Superintendent over Survivability Expert, and I would just say that I don't find that I use hydro enough to justify it. I don't find that I use smoke enough to justify it, but I definitely take damage every single game, and I can justify that. So that's my thought process on that as well. And, customize it all you want, but I just want to reassure you, you are not bad. You are not employing a strategy that is, terrible because you're in control. Unicum players can perform better than what you are able to do. No, we're dealing with the exact same thing. We're dealing with targets that are refusing to give angle in every single scenario on the Daring and the Jutland, and until we commit to IFHE and countering that, that is going to be the norm rather than the exception. So I just want to make this video to reassure you guys, hey, it's the build, you gotta pick up IFHE. People are too good, and I don't think people give enough credit to the community how quickly they disseminate knowledge and just recognize that this is the way to go. I mean, it happened fast that I felt like everyone recognized what they needed to do to angle against my AP. But after specking IFHE, magically, it's incredibly successful once again. So I hope you enjoyed this. Leave your thoughts. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.